Welcome in again, everybody, to There's Too Many Podcasts. It's a podcast about podcasts. My name is Chrisi, and so happy that you could be with us. This is a very interesting and unique idea my guest has for this week. Madison on the Air is basically old-time radio for 2024. Madison is the character that my guest plays, and she is a millennial, typical millennial speak, who's transported into old-time radio shows. It's a really fascinating idea. I always tell people that radio broke my heart. I loved radio. Growing up, my parents, we didn't have cable even into, I think it was around September 11th, 2001 was when we got cable. Prior to that, we just had the rabbit ears, and back in those days, there was obviously no streaming. So a lot of major events that I learned about on the radio, like things that were happening at the moment. I used to stay up late listening. I remember listening to a baseball game in Cleveland, Ohio from a AM radio station in Syracuse, and it was the game that Cal Ripken broke the playing streak. The all-time consecutive games played, I think, is how they labeled that. But anyways, I remember I think I was in my early teens at that point, and just floored by it. Absolutely floored. And I've been in love with radio ever since. As I grew older, I would stay up till like 3, 4 in the morning listening to Art Bell. And as I grew into adulthood, I started getting into old-time radio. And it's nice to talk to somebody who also shares that passion, because not a lot of people know, but back in the day, radio was it. And you got your prime time listening instead of viewing through the radio, and there were all these shows, comedy shows, a lot of mystery and crime, which are probably the two genres that hold up most. The comedy, we'll talk about it a little bit with quote-unquote Madison here coming up, but the comedy doesn't quite hold up here in 2024 as well, although some do. And again, we'll get into that. You'll hear that part. But this Madison on the Air idea is just fascinating to me, and it's really well done. Chrisi has done a nice job involving other actors out there in Hollywood. She's done a brilliant job with the script. Now, we forgot, and I'm still learning the podcast game, I guess. Oh, speaking of which, don't forget, please subscribe. Please follow us on social media. Right now we have Instagram, we have Threads, and Blue Sky. And for now, those are the only 3. And I know those are controversial 3, but those are the ones we have. And I'm trying my best with social media. Please join me. As these episodes roll out, we'll be posting little snippets, little behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe things that are exclusive, little outtakes, all kinds of good stuff on social media. But one of the mistakes that I made here with Chrisi is that I forgot to mention her husband. And we had talked about her husband, but I was not recording. This was after the interview had finished. So her husband does all of the music for Madison on the Air and it's just a really cute intro to Madison on the Air. So anyways, with all of that said, let's get into the nit and gritty here, and really you're going to enjoy hearing about the story ideas, the process behind it. Here she is right now, quote Madison, unquote. Chrisi Talyn Saje. She is Madison on the Air. Chrisi, do you have any pets?
I have 5 pets.
All with you right now, or?
Yeah. I have 3 cats and 2 dogs.
Oh my God.
2-bedroom small apartment.
Oh my God. You're in LA, right?
I am.
Okay, so my friend lived in LA, doing the acting thing like you, and he had 2 dogs, his girlfriend and him, in a studio apartment for years. I couldn't imagine. I brought it up because my cat, I just got done with grocery shopping, And, of course, in Kat's minds, I've done my murdering and I've brought it all home. And so she's very alert right now. So chaos might ensue here. But thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
glad
you.
to be here. I do have a cat sleeping on the bed behind me. If she wakes up, you might hear her as well.
That's fine. We'll deal with the chaos on both ends, and everything will be fine. Thank you not only for being on the podcast, but thank you as well for being my other follower on social media platforms. I have two now, ladies and gentlemen. Madison on the air was nice enough to follow me. I can't even get the porn bots to follow me at this stage, but it's really sweet of you to do that and to help in any way you can with the
Well, as long as
promotion.
you have goals
Yeah,
to get
oh
those.
yeah. Massive, massive goals. That reminds me, I know you have to do this, I guess. You have to constantly, I hate watching YouTube videos where they're like, don't forget to like and subscribe, but you literally have to do that, right?
Because they do forget. Just like and subscribe. You
Oh,
have to
God.
remind them.
Okay, so do all of those things. I have not joined Twitter yet. I'm conflicted on that. I really don't want to. My personal broadcasting thing is on Twitter, but I don't know if we're going to do this podcast on Twitter. But it's on Instagram. It's on Threads. I, what's your experience with Blue Sky? Is this going to happen or what?
I'm active on it to an extent, but see, when Twitter became X and everybody did the mass exodus, they first went to Mastodon, and I found I was posting to an audience of two. And so then all of a sudden that kind of went away, and all of a sudden Blue Sky Social came around. Everyone's like, you have to be here. And I find there's very low discoverability on it. They haven't figured out hashtags yet. They don't allow you to upload video. And I find all my people on Twitter are on Twitter saying, come and follow me on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Because no one could find each other. So at least I have about an audience of 4 now
All
on Blue
right.
Sky.
Double
So
me. You're double me, but is one of those for you? One of your personal accounts? Because one of my two, it's you and me, basically. All right.
I don't know. I don't know where we're all going to land with the socials right now.
I don't think anybody does, but so we're already over 3 minutes into this, and we haven't even discussed anything. So let's get into Madison on the air. And so I've told two different people about this show that you do, and one is 26, one is 43. And the 26-year-old said, what a cool idea. And the 43-year-old said, what a brilliant idea. So you have two different demographics there, Chrissy, but both positive.
Yay.
And I'm curious, what are the demographics for your show like? Do you get young people listening to this?
I do. I don't think I'm as engaged with them on socials, so I don't really like get to chat with too many of the younger people, but I have heard good feedback. I think one of the best ones I had was a very younger guy, like early 20s, and he actually asked, "How old is Madison?" because I think she's my age. And I'm like, "Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Sure she is." I know, of course, most of my pop culture references and jokes tend to be on the Gen X side of things. But I try to make her very general, try to make her just a fun character. And you don't have to necessarily identify with her to enjoy the adventure she's on.
Take us through the idea creation. We haven't really talked about what you're doing. Madison on the air, for those of you who don't know, I will mention it, of course, but it's old time radio meets Madison, basically. And Madison is a modern gal who's transported back in time to these old time radio shows. Where did this idea come from in your mind?
Well, this was born out of COVID. I am a COVID baby. Basically, at the time that COVID hit, I was producing a play, a live theater play, and literally the world closed down the week we were supposed to open. And I spent most of the quarantine like, what do I do with myself? Wrote the screenplay that no one will ever read. What do I do? And I thought about what could I do remotely and get all of my actor friends who are sitting at home bored also to do remotely. And I have been a fan of old time radio since like the late 90s. Like literally, I listen to a different show every night to fall asleep to. So I am listening to a new show every night. And I just, this character of Madison, she is a character I've been doing in improv for quite some time. She was like my go-to kind of fun girl, valley girl, that kind of thing. Now kind of more
Yes.
millennial girl.
Can we stop
And
there for a second? Because I have this image a little bit like Lisa Kudrow in The Comeback when I hear Madison speak. Is there any inspiration there? Am I close?
I don't know if she's a combination of a lot of things, but definitely the blonde girl who's just out there to have fun, and she's kind of concerned with things in her own life as the most important things in the world, and isn't quite familiar with the fact that the rest of the world is spinning around her.
Um, your website, you mentioned this that you do repurpose these old time radio scripts. I'd like to push you on that a little bit because I'm curious how much actually gets used.
Yeah, I go and I there was a website that I started with where they provide a lot of old time radio scripts, mostly at the time, pre-COVID, a lot of just groups who were fans of these shows would grab these scripts and perform them live. Like I've seen a lot of them will just do it at their local library, or it's a Halloween event. So let's pull out the Dracula episode and things like that. So there are a lot of just fans of the genre who do that. And so this website was catering to them. Like, here's a bunch of scripts. So I started there, but I download the original scripts. They're all public domain. They're over 70 years old. And I just put that script into my writing program and just start going, how would Madison react to this? And that's all it is. And so after that, I got kind of hitting walls with just the few titles that they had and shows that maybe I really enjoyed that weren't on that particular website. So I went ahead and I started transcribing myself before there were really good transcribing programs. So I was like talk to text, and I'm recording it like straight from that old recording into my text. And yeah, so I kind of now have a freedom of I can take any script I want now and use them.
I don't know if it's because now I'm 41, about to be 42 years old, a white man, but I've been getting into old time radio myself. I do the same thing sometimes at nighttime. It's a lot of Lux Radio Theater, and I'm in an
Yes.
apartment, so I'm just mortified at 2 a.m. if somebody's hearing this. But
Well, I
it's
go to sleep to murder every night. My husband's like, my God, they're screaming and like you things happening. I'm like, I'm just getting comfy and falling asleep.
I find that the mystery ones for old time radio, they seem to hold up a little bit better. But for comedy, Jack Benny, surprisingly, in 2024, is a good listen.
Well, his is just straight up good written comedy, and you don't have to necessarily be like, it's not a lot of references that you'd have to be in that era to understand. I think that's where he does well.
Yeah, it's a lot of he's cheap, he's incompetent, he's a narcissist. It's really well done. But I mean, there are problems with pretty much any old time radio show if you look at them through the lens of 2024. When people kind of mention those things to me, I don't know about you, but I always tell them sometimes you have to enjoy things in the context of the time period that they were produced and understand where we've come as part of that. I don't know if
Oh,
that.
that's 100% why I'm doing this. I look at them as a window into the past. You are being absolutely immersed in what that world was like back then. And anybody who's tried to create an old time radio feel after the fact, in recent years, they might give the flavor of it. But to go to a commercial for Chesterfield cigarettes supported by a doctor, I mean, you just can't make that up. It is brilliant that was the thing at the time. And so, yeah, you definitely, it is not PC. And that is where Madison comes in,
Yeah.
especially
And
as a woman. because the majority is sexism. But we've, of course, addressed how people of color are treated if they show up in these shows at all. Uh, One of the things that I've been true to is making sure so my actors then reenact all the other characters as if they're really in the dramas, right?
Right.
I don't have it. It's not a spoof. We're not doing over the top 211 kind of stuff. They're really in that adventure. So I want them to be as true to the original performances as possible. I don't ask anybody to imitate the original actors unless we've had some really like well-known characters. But I want you to play it real, like this is real to you. And then Madison, as the fish out of water modern day lens, gets to comment on that. Therefore, when I cast it, I am not casting women in roles like police officers, doctors, heads of business.
Right.
It wasn't done.
No.
And it wouldn't be true to that era if I just threw a female in there. So I'd rather hang a lantern on the problem than try to pretend like it didn't happen.
And that's kind of a good transition to what I wanted to talk about next, because when Madison is transported back in time, she does a good job of pointing these things out, but at the same time, what I really love about her is she's just along for the ride. She's going with the flow. It's really well done how you work that in.
She's very zen. She is. Kind of like in the opening credits, the theme. That is my thing. It's a little MST3K here. Like, don't concern yourself with how she got back there. She probably should be trying to get out, but she's having a good time. So we're just going with it.
The other thing too, along those same lines, is nobody on the shows. The most recent one I just listened to on Sunday was the Archie. No, it wasn't Archie. I listened to Archie last week. I listened to Snow White. But with both of them, the people who are interacting with Madison also don't seem to mind. They don't mind the modern speak. They're also going with the flow, it seems like. And based on what you've just told me, I'm guessing that the script has something to do with that, maybe.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it is we would be at a standstill if everybody had to just be like, that's weird that you're saying that. That's weird that you talk like that. That, like, okay, end of episode. So they kind of have to accept it. I throw in certain things, especially in earlier seasons, where she'll say something and you get a moment of, what was that? Like, and we just kind of push past it. Like, they just kind of accept it, but they acknowledge that they don't know what that modern speak is. But my favorite is her name, Madison. And I did a whole thing this year with our anniversary about how the name Madison, if anybody out there is not familiar, didn't exist as a woman's name until the Tom Hanks movie Splash. It was completely made up for that movie. It was a joke.
No.
He kept telling her in that scene, you can't be called Madison. No, that's not a woman's name. And she's like, I like it. I want to be called Madison. And after that, we've had now a generation of Madisons.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, 100%. Go back and watch Splash. He's trying to come up with a name to call her because her real name he can't pronounce because it's mermaid. And so they're walking down the street and he's saying, here's a name. And then he's like, oh, I'm lost. Let's see, where are we? Okay, we're at Madison Avenue. Madison, that's what I want to be called. He's like, no, you can't be called Madison. Yeah, that's what I want. So I like to then in my scripts, every now and then the name Madison popping up and they're just finding, that's an unusual name for a woman. She gets voted as the sheriff of a small town in like the Texas Panhandle in 1929 because they saw the name Madison on the ballot and they thought it was a guy. And that's how I start that episode. Yeah, she's sheriff now because they didn't know any better.
I was almost thinking, well, what about Dolly Madison? But that's her last name.
Last name. Well, obviously Madison Avenue. Madison is named for
right.
Dolly Madison's husband. So,
while we're on the topic, I know that I don't want to give too much away, but I was going to ask about this anyways. How about Standish? Where did that come from?
Well, I did just have a contest for our 3rd anniversary because that was a little more hidden, a little more of a mystery. And I wanted to see if a few people did. Standish actually comes from The Breakfast Club. Keeping with my 1980s comedies, that is Molly Ringwald's character Claire. She's the only one that ever a last name is used, and it's Standish. And I thought that Claire, she is the popular girl and she's the sort of conceited girl, but she's still kind of we like her anyway girl. So I thought that was a good last name for her.
Yeah, a nice little nod to 80s movies that I
Pop
think
culture from Gen X.
80s, yeah, well, I think Gen X movies kind of in general are getting lost by the wayside because people are, it seems like, either going back, kind of like what we're doing with old time radio. I do the same thing with movies every so often and just go way back or not back far enough. And that middle area, the 70s and 80s are two different things. People of a certain age who are listening to this, you need to understand that because I've seen 70s movies and everybody talks about The Godfather and all of the hits, but there are some god-awful 70s movies out there, especially targeted towards teens. That is not the case with the 80s. There are brilliant, brilliant movies from the 80s.
John Hughes.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Madison, by the way, I'm looking this up now because I'm into this. And I heard you talk about it on the podcast, but that was at a point where the cat was giving me troubles. I heard the Standish part. That was the Snow White one, I think, the one that I just listened to.
Yeah, that's where I give the reveal for the contest. I gave 2 months for people to enter the contest. Not a lot of takers. A lot of people got it wrong. It's not a Pilgrim and Miles Standish. No, it was Claire.
It did come, though, from Maddie, which was a medieval girl's name, short for Madeline or Maud. That's what this says. And Madison is currently 61st. It's lost a little bit of steam, but
if you're thinking of how old Madison we guess she is, that would have been the time when all the parents are naming their little girls Madison.
Peaked in 2001.
Yeah.
Right there. Right there when people who grew up watching those movies would probably be having kids. Good stuff. All right. Any more facts and figures you'd like me to Google while we're...
I've got layers, man. It's not just comedy. I got layers.
I want to give a cat update, by the way. She's being so good. She has gone to her 3rd cat tree, and she knows when I'm broadcasting. It's very weird because the sports broadcasting that I do is actually remotely, so I do it from here. And she knows that when the headset comes out, okay, I got to do my business, and then I got to go to sleep. What a good girl she's being right now. How about your 5 animals? What kind of chaos do we have going on over there?
Well, as long as the mailman or an Amazon delivery guy doesn't come by, the dog should be sleeping. They are very protective of those delivery guys. And the cats, of course, are all passed out. I've got an older group. My youngest is 5, so everybody else ranges up to like 13, 14. So
yeah, my girl Meepy, she is 6, but I was told, and the last cat that I had, it was my ex's cat, but I claim her, and slept maybe 20 hours a day. There were times where we had to go physically wake her up just to have her up for at least part of the day. This cat, 6-year-old cat, sleeps maybe 10 minutes a day. I'm thinking maybe 10, 15 at nighttime. But yeah, she's wild. But she's being a good girl right now, so that's good. We've got the update on the animals. We talked a little bit about shows and looking at them through the context of modern times. I mentioned Jack Benny, and if you listen to the Jack Benny program, you will hear, I can't think of his butler's name or his housemaid's name, whatever his name was.
Oh gosh, now you're saying it. I got it out of my head.
It's killing me right now. I've been thinking about it. I haven't listened
Rochester.
to it. Rochester. Thank you, God.
Go.
Oh, Chrisi, I might need you to co-host this thing with me. Rochester, very much a character of what an African-American stereotype was thought of back then. That said, looking at it through the context of modern times, it looks real bad. But back then, he was one of the first African-American actors who was able to kind of write his own ticket. He owned his own home. That was not common back then. Uh, Jack Benny and his entourage went to a New York City hotel a long time ago, and a couple from Mississippi was there and asked that Rochester be removed. And Jack Benny said no problem. He packed up the entire entourage, left the hotel. So, when we look at those things through that context, it doesn't seem as bad as when you hear Rochester maybe speak. But that said, have you encountered anything? I assume Amos and Andy is completely off topic.
I will never do Amos. Yeah, no, that is one that even Madison would just walk in the room going, oh, hell no, and just walk out
Nope,
again.
I got to figure out how to get... That would be the episode maybe if you want to try to figure out how to get her back home. That would be...
Yeah, right.
do, because she would probably be more inclined. But aside from Amos and Andy, is there anything else that you've encountered that...
I will say, it was I think my second year. We did the Green Hornet, and that one has Kato. That has the servant sidekick Asian character that one of my actors on my roster, Steve Jun, he is Korean American, and I went to him. I said, I want to do this. I want to highlight how they portray him, but I want to make sure I'm doing it right.
Right.
And so I wrote the script and handed it to him first for his pass. And none of my scripts get a pass by anybody else. Even my own husband doesn't read the scripts. So it was a real big deal to be like, let's work on this together, make sure I'm doing it. And my concept for the Green Hornet episode, usually she just each week she pops up at another show. We don't really know exactly how she got there. She's just there. This particular one, I actually quantum leaped her, where she shows up and everyone thinks she is the Green Hornet.
Right.
They see her that way. And I made a whole thing about how Kato is the only one who knows she's actually Madison. So when they are together, he talks normally. He's an intelligent man. But then when they're around other people, they see her as the Hornet and him as this subservient character. And I would have him go back and forth, putting on the really bad Asian accent around the other people and then not having that accent talking to her at all. And when I wrote it, because it's Madison anyway, and she's not super on the ball, I always like to make sure all my lead detectives and all those people are really calling the shots, because I don't want to tear down any of these other characters that people are beloved, your Sam Spades, Philip Marlowe's, that kind. So I still make them calling the shots. And so this time, since she was the Green Hornet, who would be the one leading the show, I gave all of those good decision-making choices to Kato. And that this whole thing succeeded despite Madison being in the Green Hornet's shoes. And then after that particular episode, Steve got a couple friends of his who are working performers here in Los Angeles of the Asian American community. And that is the only actual interview show we've hosted where I just kind of introduced it and they just went, and it's a brilliant conversation. So I'd recommend listen to our Green Hornet episode 17. And then the very next bonus feature after it is this about an hour and a half interview. And it's so insightful, going from the golden age of radio and how Charlie Chan and those kind of characters existed to what the atmosphere is today. So yeah, I really was heightenedly aware of wanting to do that.
That's a really cool idea. Maybe going forward, if you've had a positive experience, might we see some more of that maybe in the future?
Yeah, if I have time.
We've mentioned a little bit about the cast, and I think it would be really inappropriate if we didn't give them a lot of love, because there's got to be a ton of work involved for everybody. By the way, props to you for being able to be in Hollywood and handle your own script. That's got to be the most awesome thing on the planet for you. But the cast, let's talk about the cast. I know you mentioned them kind of in passing at the beginning, A lot of actors who were stuck during COVID, much like you, who jumped in and have stayed on for 3 years now.
Yeah, it's been wonderful with, I reached out to my local people and we're just like, let's try to get you with a good mic. Let's try to make sure you have a room that's dead enough to, keep out room echo and outside noise. And I started with people I knew and have worked with, and a lot of them I've directed on stage or in like shorts and things. So they already kind of knew how I worked. They're familiar with my writing. So that was very helpful that they kind of understood how Madison is and they could hear my voice in it because everybody records remotely. We do not do it all together. We don't even do a read
I
through.
was going to ask you if you were in studio or not.
No, well, we started that way and it's been working for us. I don't do the read throughs and stuff because everyone's just too busy. We did one bonus feature of The Shadow first year where somebody gave me a script where the original recording is lost to time, so they only have the script. And that one we decided to do straight. So there's no Madison in it. I didn't rewrite it, and we recorded it over Discord. And to get just 5 people in like available at the same time was insurmountable. So I was
Right.
not going to do that. I figure I will use as little time of as little as these people's time as possible so that they feel like they can do it. I will give them the script with a ton of notes and things to describe what I'm looking for, and then 3 weeks to turn it around because I cannot afford to pay anybody. This is them doing me a favor. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, you're getting exposure and like that should be enough for them. I want to make sure it's a comfortable, good experience for them.
Good for you.
Yeah. And since then, because the show has got an audience, people have come to me and said, I'd like to voice on your show. So I have expanded my roster from those original people who were local to me to I work with people across the globe now. And as long as you can record in your own space and it's decent, return it back to me. And it's been great to have such a connection to so many different talented people now.
Yeah, because, when you're asking people to give of their time, it's good to have a roster, I've found.
Yes. And the blessing for my show, unlike some others, is that mine are all standalone episodes. So there are times when I have a script ready, I have a particular actor on my roster in mind, I go to them saying, hey, here's the script, this is when the due date is, and they're like, work is really bad for me right now, I can't. And it's no big deal. I haven't lost that actor who would be like a continuing voice that I would absolutely need in the role. I'm able to be like, okay, who else is on my roster that's available? The only one that's been a hangup is Sherlock Holmes. My Sherlock Holmes episodes have resonated really well with people. So that is the only show I've done in repeat. And we're coming on year 4, going to have our 4th episode of Sherlock. And that one, I'm like, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I need you to play Sherlock. So, but bless his heart, my friend Albert Garnica, who plays him, has been available. So all's good.
So you've got this great cast. We kind of talked a little bit about the audience and the demographics based on people that I've talked to. I'm kind of curious, as far as popularity goes, as far as growing this thing goes, how do you attract people to this kind of a podcast? I found you on Reddit. But
Good.
that was a specific Reddit group featuring old time radio. So if you're a fan of old time radio, you already know that this exists. But I'm just kind of curious what the marketing is for you to try to expand on this.
Yeah, it definitely has been a lot of grassroots marketing. It has been socials. I'm on socials every single day, and I post once a day, and I try to do things within my brand, whether it's referring to the show itself, but I also like to put up things that are related to not only old time radio, but like interesting things from the era of the 30s through the 50s. I love the slice of life
Yeah.
kind of stuff and funny pictures and like, can you believe this image kind of things.
There's a lot of that on her socials that are really, really funny.
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Madison on the Air, and on Blue Sky Social at Madison Standish.
For
But
now.
for now, um, yeah, and it has been trying to reach people any way I can. Um, the most popular genres of audio drama are sci-fi, horror, and fantasy. And like I'm on the subreddit for audio drama every day. And when people ask for recommendations, that's what they ask for. And it's very hard to find anybody who's interested in a quirky little comedy. But anytime someone posts about something, even like remotely similar to what I do, I'm like, okay, I'm there. And then I'm also commenting on other people and trying to chat people up and talk about just podcasting in general or audio drama in general. So I really try to be engaged. And I like to think that I've like clawed my way at each person I've got listening to the show one at a time to bring them over. I do have a newsletter as well that goes out twice a month, available on my website for free, madisonontheair.com. And that's been building an audience, and I've been getting more and more uh, subscribers to that. And I do some exclusive content to hopefully make it more interesting in there. I don't have any paywalls. I have Ko-fi if you want to throw me a couple bucks, but I don't do like a Patreon account or anything yet. I'm really about just come on and listen, give it a shot. It might be different than you usually listen to, but I promise you it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, and it's something that's fun, and it's something that if you're looking for a different kind of podcast, this is definitely the route to go, even though technically I guess it's not a podcast, it's a radio show. In our times it's a podcast.
Well, and it's a fully immersive audio drama, full cast, sound effects, but I'm also a trained sitcom writer. That's my wheelhouse. And so I am the three jokes a page, kind of let's just be silly, let's just have fun. I'd like to throw in jokes that kind of will whiz by you, and you might want to listen a second time to go, wait, what did she just say? Just to be fun. It's just meant to be fun. There is definitely the social elements of it. She makes, of course, those observations about the sexism or how people of color are treated, but also just silly things, funny things, political like jokes of the era, things like that. It's just meant to be a fun. It's popcorn, it's the popcorn movie.
Right.
It's not it's a lot like Godfather, right?
You mentioned script writing. I'm curious about that. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about there that you've done in the past that maybe we know you from?
I am still trying to get that foot in the door here in Los Angeles. I came out here in my late 20s, and I have had every entry level position they offer, and then every type of assistant they offer. And those foot in the doors have never got me to the next rung. But I did start out here on a sitcom in a writer's room as an assistant. And what was nice, it was in the Peter Ingle world of Saved by the Bell. It was in the height of his empire when he had 7 shows on the air. Ours was called Malibu CA. The lead characters were named after me, by the way.
Oh, really?
but um, but it was a small straight to syndication show. Only lasted 2 seasons, but I really threw myself into it. That was like film school for me. I picked the brains of all the writers who a lot of them had been around in the industry for a while and kind of were like finishing up their career at this show because it was a little less stress that at the time like Friends was on the air, things like
Right.
that. So I got a lot of great feedback then on how to do like good joke writing and things like that. I wrote spec scripts like crazy of every show that was around to really get myself into the voices of those shows. And that is, I think, has lended me to Madison, is that I can write for other people's content and make it feel like it's really that show.
You know
And
why I asked is because I could see this as an animated show. I think it would be hysterical to see Madison the cartoon.
the
Uh,
people who do Archer, give me a call right now.
what was the South Park joke? Hello, Netflix, you're approved, or something
Yes.
like that. But I mean, Adult Swim would be great for this. I don't know. I'm just, I would love to see this as a cartoon. I think it would be delightful as an adult cartoon. It really would.
I would love that. That would be a great like dream. I'm just like baby steps, one at a time. Get some more listeners, and let's see where we can go with this for sure.
Madison on the air. This is Chrisi, Talyn, Sage, and she plays Madison, which was not a name before the mid 80s, evidently. We learned
You've
something.
learned something.
We've been
Yes,
entertained by you, Chrisi, and we've learned today. And that's what I hope this podcast can be.
fabulous.
Thank you so much. And Madison on the air is literally everywhere. You've got the links, but anywhere in particular you'd like to promote if people are looking for Madison on the air?
No, just find me wherever you find your podcast. I'm also on YouTube. So if that's more of a place you want to listen, new episodes premiere the first of every month. I don't do seasons. I just do one episode a month. So there's always something new coming up. The first of the month is Madison Day. So be prepared to celebrate.
Maybe we'll work this out, and this will be on the 30th or 31st, maybe, and we'll get everybody on board. By the way, I use Antenna Pod, which I really recommend as far as a podcast host. It's awesome. Chrisi, I want to thank you for your time today, and I can't thank you for the laughs enough. It's really interesting, and I'm so glad that I found it on Reddit, and I've become a huge fan of it. It's like Chrisi said, it's just fun. If you want to have fun, take a break from the murder. Jesus Christ. Take a
And don't
break.
worry, we have plenty of murder too.
Yes.
Lots of noir murder.
Yes, Madison is very sleuthy. You can you can count on that.
She
Chrisi,
keeps stepping in the blood of these poor dead people.
my God. Yeah, take a break from the murder. Take a break from Mark Maron. He's miserable anyways. It's not going to change whether you listen to him or not. Listen to Madison on the air. Have a laugh. Chrisi, thanks again for your time.
Thanks for having me.